Hi, DIFesters. My name is Rodinov Vincent, and I am the founder of VFS Global. A warm welcome to you all on the third edition. This year, DIFest will focus on the future of work by addressing authenticity, belongingness, and social impact as some of the most important practices for building a more inclusive and purpose driven workforce for everyone to thrive. Before we begin, I would like to humbly thank our belonging partner, Newsela, for supporting our initiative in democratizing world class content and promoting equity in education. On this note, I would like to welcome you to our session on leveraging DEIB practices to create a social impact, what companies are doing to be socially responsible. Our moderator for today is a senior DEI professional who helps organizations overcome barriers to adopt and integrate DEI holistically. With more than 2 decades of experience, she helps designing and executing DEI programs and initiatives in the workplace while advocating for intentional inclusion. She has worked on multiple initiatives and programs in various areas, including gender equality, LGBTQ inclusion, disability inclusion, and bias programs for underrepresented communities in the workplace. Please welcome Tina Vinod.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Rudy, for that introduction. And I have with me today Elena, Gilberto, and Chandra. They're from 3 different countries. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today on leveraging DEIB for social impact. We'll start with a quick round of introductions, and then we can go ahead. Elena, would you like to go first?
Sure. So I'm Elena Primikiri. I'm head of ESG for VFS Global. I've joined the company almost a year and a half ago. And my responsibility is to run a lot of initiatives, strategies, and programs around all of the elements of E, S, and G. So very briefly.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Elena. I'm looking forward to having a great conversation with you today. Chandra, would you like to go next?
Certainly, Tina. Thank you so much. My name is Chandra Duraiswamy. I lead global communications for LM Wind Power based out of Bangalore. I also wear another hat. I am a DEI activist, and I also co-lead the Pride Pillar for GE South Asia.
Thank you so much, Chandra. Chandra is also a very good friend, and we've partnered on a lot of DEI initiatives together. Gilberto, over to you.
Good morning. First of all, thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys today to talk about D&I initiatives as well. My name is Gilberto Costa. I'm from Brazil. I'm living in the US now. I'm the executive director for the Pact for Racial Equity. I'm also an executive director at JP Morgan Chase in the US. So I'm having been pushing the D&I agenda on Onshore Brazil society for a long time. And it's a great opportunity today to talk about D&I initiatives and also in terms of, ESG racial actions to tackle the racial inequality.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's so true. We are from different countries. We are from different organizations. But inequities exist in different forms, in different ways. And today, organizations have a larger role to play, not only internally in seeing what they can invest and do for their employees and for their organization, but even externally. When we were talking about this particular topic, with Rudina, who drives DIFest, one of the things we spoke about is how companies separated corporate social responsibility or ESG from their DEI initiatives, right? In the past, CSR was considered like an external philanthropic initiative, whereas DEI was internal. And that gap is changing with the whole ESG strategy coming in. As cited in a recent HBR article, until the mid-2010s, few investors paid attention to ESG data. information about carbon footprint, labor policies, board, makeup, or even pay parity were not something that investors looked at. But today, that data is widely important. Many investors screen poor ESG performers out, assuming that the factors that cause companies to review low ESG ratings will result in weak financial results. Let's look at the Gen Z today, right? And they are in the workforce. And one of the research shares that Gen Z care deeply about purpose-driven organizations, and organizations will be able to retain Gen Zers a lot more if they are purpose-driven and are able to engage Gen Zers in their ESG or their DEI programs. And so you can see how, right, whether it's investors or the youngest people in your organization, today DEI, social impact, ESG matters. I'll go over to Elena first. And, Elena, my first question to you is, as the head of ESG for VFS Global, how do you weave in the DEI aspects to your organization's commitment to social impact, whether it is ESG principles, any initiatives that you can share?
Okay, thanks, Tina, so much. Very well said. And I would add that apart from investors, even employees are looking more confident joining companies who have more ESG, elements into it. So it's not just the investors and even the customers and the consumers are becoming more and more engaged. So, but anyway, thank you so much for this event, and I would like to thank my co-panelists Gilberto and Chandra. I'm looking forward to our conversation today, and of course Vinod for this amazing opportunity to participate in the third edition of DIFEST Global event. Allow me to say just a few things about who is VFS. First of all, I'm right now I'm talking to you from Dubai, so this is where we're based. VFS is an outsourcing company for visa application processing, and it spreads across 140 countries with more than 9,000 employees and over 126 nationalities. So diversity for us, it's more of a part of our DNA. Given our mandate, serving 65 client governments, because our main customers is actually the client governments, we feel responsible to leverage our industry leadership to promote sustainability practices and define strategies and actions based on impact assessment, and thereby creating social value, right? Because if you cannot measure, how can you improve? Our ESG strategy is based on 5 pillars, contributing to sustainable economic growth, delivering good governance, nurturing our colleagues, protecting our environment, supporting our communities. And each of these pillars are very carefully selected and aligned with the organization's business strategy. And that's a key element when you design strategies of that sort, how you kind of align it with your business strategy, how you align it with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because it's a big priority for our client governments, and how do you align it with other stakeholders, shareholders, investors, customers, employees, everyone. So this strategy is embedded within the organization of VFS. That was the second thing that we wanted to do. It's more of an embedded approach and a cross-functional approach, so that we can have more, again, maximize our impact. And through this strategy, we show, of course, considerable focus on D&I. So part of the, and D&I, from the holistic point of view, often the term sustainability is misused or misunderstood, let me put it more correctly. And we think that it only involves effort pertaining to the environment. However, as we know, sustainability has 3 pillars. So you have the environment, you have the economy, and you have the society. So we're getting the balance of all these 3, when you're talking about true sustainable development. And good sustainability strategies must embrace these diverse communities and the voices within them. And a workforce that represents diverse ethnic and social backgrounds is more likely to understand how a business operation affects different communities. And there's also evidence that diverse companies are more productive when making changes and solving existing challenges. So the S from the ESG focuses on human rights, health and safety, freedom of expression, and social sustainability through employee practices, through policies, and in succeeding within the S pillar. But D&I cannot be limited only to S. And it's not a standalone thing. It's not just HR practice. It's something much more, and it's how you support the community as a whole. So, for example, how do you promote minorities for underrepresented groups? How do you give them opportunities to build skills, whether it's Gen Z, whether it's allyship program, apprenticeship programs that you have for young generation, and how you can help them create career paths. So it is a little bit of a combination of a CSR, a little bit of a combination of how internally you support them. And this is how we are thinking it also from VFS perspective. So we have numbers of initiatives that we follow to enhance D&I, whether it's skill development programs, whether it's women empowerment programs, whether it's programs with NGOs or with our client governments, with diversity experts, to create an inclusive environment that our diversified communities within the organization feel safe, to perform to the best of their ability, but also across all our stakeholders, including our supply chain and everybody involved on the way of our doing our business.
Thank you so much, Elena. I think you put it together so beautifully. And when you talk about DEI, DEI cuts across E and G as well. And when we look at even environment or climate change, it's the marginalized communities that are impacted the most. And so it cuts across the entire ESG framework. Coming to you, Gilberto, could you share how do the social impact programs in Brazil help support underserved communities? Example, people of color, and how do you address opportunity gaps?
So, Brazil is a country where the social and economic inequality is deeply related to the racial issue, right? Because of the historical situation, because of the way that, racism was, treated in Brazil as well. According to the local data body in 2016, among, I would say, 10% of the most poorest population in Brazil, 78% are black. And the majority of them live in ghettos or favelas or, comunidades in Brazil, like, people with low income, with no opportunity, with no access to education. In the opposite, if we take a look, among the 10% of the wealth people in Brazil, 73% they are white. So we see here a huge gap, right, between the black population, the non-black population as well. This is a clear result of the impact of the socio-economic inequality brings to the black population, and the absence of clear affirmative action from a government standpoint, for the inclusion of black population in the economy, plus the institutional racism, plus the low quality of public education, which is a fundamental for everyone, this could be pointed as a key factors for the, this high level of inequality in our country. Mainly for the low-income communities, ghettos of favela community, those people, they lack access of government support as well. So the way that I see it now, like, there is a growing concern from companies and the civil society in terms of how to connect everyone in the same agenda. And ESG is this link, right? ESG is something that everyone understands. We have institutional investors, we have shareholders, we have companies, we have civil society, we have the black population, everyone working together, in partnership with the philanthropy sector to address those challenges from a social inequality standpoint and from a D&I standpoint as well. So, my opinion, coming from a low income community in Rio de Janeiro, probably some of you guys know Rio de Janeiro, where we have the favelas, we have the black communities and across the state as well. I see that the way that we are addressing those new challenges is through the partnership. There is no way to philanthropy to support everything, right? In the past, companies and government, they put, okay, HR is the one responsible to tackle this agenda. Oh, no, talk to my philanthropy body who is being in charge of, dealing with those inequalities. We cannot do that anymore because you need a huge investment in public education to help those people that they were not part of the affirmative actions to thrive. And the only way to do it is going back and to help people with public education, to help people with training, to have people with black entrepreneurships, to help black people and also low-income communities to have access, a good government service. So I believe that after some events like George Floyd, everyone now is following the same agenda in working partnership, between those four key partners to make sure that we are able to fight this inequality. I'm very positive now because in Brazil I see a lot of movements that trying to overcome this type of situation. For example, the Pact for Racial Equity that was launched 2 years ago in a partnership between civil society, third sector, investor, and companies. So I believe that in the long term we will be able to overcome those issues.
Thank you, Gilberto. That was so well said. Affirmative action is fundamental for everyone. And you also spoke about how ESG today is the link that brings together investors, stakeholders, civil societies, employers, employees, underrepresented communities together. And that's so true, right? Now, today we have something like ESG that can be beautifully utilized as a framework across organizations. Chandra, coming to you, you work in Wind Power, which is a subsidiary of GE. But when you say wind power, you think of environment, the E. But you are a DEI, advocate and a leader in the DEI space as well, and in the communication space. So I'm sure the ESG aspects of your organization is not new to you. But how do you ensure you weave in DEI in the ESG investments of your organization?
Um, Thank you, Tina. Great question. See, we are a wind turbine manufacturer. We manufacture blades for wind turbines, and we have 13 plants around the world. 50 nationalities work for us. So, which means it is enormous. I mean, look at the cultural aspect of it. Look at the intersectionality. Um, you know, um, so we want to make everybody feel belong and included. And we're also the first organization to achieve net zero in the wind industry because sustainability has always been top of the mind, be it people or be it the environment. What we ideally do is, when we look at an angle of CSR, right, we try and map it to our DEI. And we look at it from a local lens, caring for the planet, to the community around us, and how we can work towards the empowerment and financial upliftment. For example, one of our factories is located outskirts of Bangalore, between Bangalore and Tumkur, and we've executed some of the CSR initiatives that I'm going to describe below. Like described, right? Women empowerment in rural. First, when LM started to, we said we wanted to have gender diversity because shop floor is a male bastion. When we wanted to attract women talent, a lot of these women in the rural areas were not willing to work for us because the male members in their family decided what they did. And they were not willing to wear uniforms because they were all in their traditional clothing. So which means our HR, a lot of women are there in our HR, went to their homes, convinced their brothers, their fathers, their husbands to ensure that these people can come to work, and they are being respected, their safety is ensured, we'll pick them up, we will drop them. So we had to build in these equations, not just in terms of recruitment of women for our plant, but also we looked at how can we empower other women who are not willing to come to our plant and work. For example, vocational training opportunities for them. How can we ensure that they can be self-employed, thereby they will be financially secure and independent, because that is not available in many parts of the world. Next is quality education. We continue to sponsor education for children from financially poor families. We doesn't stop in terms of sponsoring, but then we also have our volunteers go there and teach people on, there is a huge digital divide. COVID has exposed that as well. So how can we reduce the digital divide to ensure that these children in schools also know how to go online, how to surf, how to get the information, because everything is available at the click of the mouse or twiddle of a thumb today. So how can they also ensure that their safety, their privacy, their identity is not compromised? Uh, Today, we all struggle to get clean water and sanitation in many places in the world. So we've ensured that there's clean drinking water for everybody. This could be Maslow's pyramid. Food, shelter, clothing, all of this is a Maslow's pyramid, but we ensure that we focus on the pyramid, and ensure people are able to aspire for something above, get to the next level, and eventually to the self-actualization stage. Uh, Not just for people, we also care deeply for the environment. We've rejuvenated multiple lakes in the area. We've improved the green cover. And when COVID happened, right, we went out, we gave masks, we gave medicines, we also gave food rations to people, ensure nobody suffers.
Oh, thank you, Chandra. You spoke about some of the smaller things that matter from a cultural standpoint, right? And going and convincing the family to send, the women in their families to the factory, and that is something that we don't even expect to do in our roles in our corporate roles, right? But how we need to think beyond our roles itself to do the extra to bring inclusion. I think was very, that example was wonderful, and we see that all the time around us. And also the holistic approach, right? When you're looking at water, sanitation, you're looking at education, you're looking at support during the pandemic. I think that approach I think is beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. Elena, moving to you. How do you build cultural intelligence by assessing the social impact of business activities? For example, inclusive language, right? You all are spread across 100 plus regions. What are the aspects on inclusion and shared culture that you all have been doing at VFS? I'd love to hear some examples as well.
Sure. I mean, the examples are pretty much, I mean, best practices is what we pick up everybody, right? And we look at and we learn from each other. And these are the workshops, in workshops like this, we kind of pick up nice ideas so that everybody can implement. But for us, I think what helped us in this direction was to set specific strategies, set specific KPIs, set specific action plans towards the D&I agenda for our employees, for our vendors, for our communities, for our societies, and some of the measures that different organizations can implement. These facilitate in building an organizational culture because it kind of shows you where you want to go and then how you're going to reach there and then how you implement it is quite important. But we must always bear in mind that culture has to be embedded in the day-to-day business, not something that you just do on an abstract way, because you need to maximize your impact, and to do so you have to implement it within the operations of the organization. At the same time, there is the need for constant communication to emphasize the D&I activities that the organization is carrying out, and to highlight the focus that different organizations have. Because what we've realized is the moment we start communicating that we are very active in this front and we want to be an inclusive organization, you won't believe how many ideas came from different locations, from different regions. And this is what we want to do. We don't have the answer for everything, but what we want to do is to make sure that we address the challenges that local and global, either in local or in global areas we have to face. And to that end, we are taking conscious steps to enhance our diversity culture. And for example, we have created an inclusive language guide. And for our people to educate them for the do's and don'ts, and be careful how they speak, how they address few things. We try to battle the biases. What Chandra mentioned is basically the bias that you have in the men's mind that the female should be at home taking care of the kids and the mothers and the family. But how you battle this is what's important. And one is the conscious, but then you have the unconscious bias, which is even harder to battle. And then you have to look at your media campaigns. You have to look at and really address the elements within the commercials that you use, and making sure you don't actually promote these old fashioned ideas, let's say. We also look at our allyship program that aims to facilitate communication and address any discrimination that you may have. So when you create allyship on the different diversified teams, you allow a better communication among the people who belong to these specific groups, and they can feel they're more understood, they can feel more safe to express themselves, and then in that way they would be feeling more included within the organization. So these are some of the initiatives that we are taking to set the path for an inclusive language internally.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. You spoke about advertisements, and I'd recently shared that UNICEF had done a study on Indian advertisements, and they did a massive study, and what the study showed was that Indian ads reinforce gender bias and stereotypes. So they are more sexually objectified. Women are more likely to be depicted partially nude and always seen in caregiver roles. So I think that is something that and there are so many influences, right? Not just on our generation, but on our future generation as well, that we need to keep in mind. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah. Moving to you, Gilberto, it would be good if you can share any initiatives specific to racial inequity or DEI that has been undertaken in Brazil. You did talk about a racial ESG framework that you developed that's been adopted by close to 27 organizations. It'll be good for you to share, if you can share, how Data Insights provides guidance in driving the DEI and the ESG agenda.
So, I have been working on the financial interest for more than 30 years. So I'm a man number, right? So I'm based in numbers and, statistics and everything. So 2 years ago, we were looking into, the way that the racial inequality was fighting Brazil and the way that we were trying to address it. And in our view as a group, as a team, was, okay, let's work to implement a racial ESG protocol to provide companies a clear view in terms of how to measure the racial inequality inside the companies, creating a racial ESG protocol index to measure this inequality against the Black population in the ecosystem that the company works, how to build and how to develop a protocol to measure affirmative actions, and how to build and implement a protocol to measure social investment with focus on racial equity. Those three pillars, they help companies to drive the agenda, because when you measure, you are able to understand, okay, this is the point A where I am, I want to go to the point B, those are the actions that I need to implement in the long term. I personally strongly believe that affirmative actions, they can solve the problem in the short term, but they cannot solve the problem in the long term, in the long run, right? The way that everyone can solve the racial inequality and the social inequality in the long term is through public education. Because when we provide people, enough support for them to have, access to public education, good public education, to health training, to everything, they will thrive. So this racial ESG protocol was implemented 1 year ago. Now we have 30 companies. We have Bayer. We have global companies, global banks supporting the racial ESG protocol in Brazil. And the racial ESG index that was launched, now we are implementing a racial ESG index with focus in Black women, because we believe that we have a strong, huge, gap on the Black women standpoint in Brazil as well. So those actions, I believe, that will help society to put first the racial ESG protocol is a partnership with everyone. It's not only the Black population, it's Black population plus institutional investors, plus government, plus civil society, plus companies to try to help to work in the same agenda. And because this requires a lot of investment, and to do those investments, we should be able to measure those results, right? So this is exactly why the ESG racial protocol was implemented 1 year ago.
Oh, that's so wonderful to know. And I'm sure the framework can be used for other marginalized, underrepresented communities as well, right?
For sure. We started with Black communities, then we moved it to launch in November for the Black women, and in 2023 first quarter, well, we are launching the same index for the indigenous.
Wonderful, wonderful. Gilberto, you should consider open sourcing your framework for all of us to adopt.
It will be great.
Yeah, it would be really good. Thank you so much. And today there are quite a few frameworks that are there. There are organizations who are having, who are looking at impact-driven measurements of ESG, whether it is providing heat maps or telling you where you are on your, whether it's DEI or your ESG journey. So coming to you, Chandra, can you share some programs where and efforts in LM Wind Power, where your employees have been involved in social impact initiatives to drive larger inclusion and empathy and understanding? Because as we all know, especially post-pandemic, engagement of our employees in DEI initiatives is a challenge, and that is something that we are all trying different strategies, different ways of engagements, different initiatives as well. So I'd love to hear from you, Chandra.
Thank you, Tina. At GE and at LM Wind Power, we've always gone beyond checkbook charity. Tina, you shared a statistic saying that Gen Zs always want to connect to an organization through the purpose. So we have launched, it's been around for quite some time at GE, what is called the volunteering programs. So we list down various CSR initiatives where our people can volunteer, can be a part of, from registering to teach at a school, to mentoring students in rural areas of India, guide government schools to host science fairs, so on and so forth. And apart from the digital divide and trying to create that awareness around digital safety, so volunteering programs is something we heavily focus on. We get our people engaged. Second, the ongoing situation in Ukraine. There are a lot of refugees. Our people in Europe, we have around half a dozen plants in Europe. So our people in Europe have done their outreach from providing temporary shelters to these refugees, giving them food, medical supplies, teaching them local languages, employing them in our plants, ensure that they get a livelihood opportunity. They will be able to settle down in the new country where they currently live in, help them to integrate faster with the society, because that, if you're not able to help them integrate faster, that creates a huge divide as well. We have approximately 300 Ukrainians working for us. Very proud to say we have 300 Ukrainians working for us. alongside, right, we don't even just look at our progress. We also want people in the supply chain, people in the industry to join us. So in Europe specifically, we launched this initiative called Winclusion. It's an industry initiative to attract diverse talent to join the wind industry and accelerate energy transition. While we care for people, we also have to care for the planet. So we've been trying to balance this, ensure that we care for the planet. We also onboard our people and get them on this journey as well. For example, another factory in the remote area in Canada, Gaspé, right? We've integrated the Filipino community there through cultural awareness, through trainings, through jobs. We don't want anybody in any remote corner, whether if you're a minority, we don't want you to be left behind economically. So we've been doing that. And of course, we have around 8 to 9 ERGs for underrepresented and marginalized group in the company, to promote awareness, to also create inclusion, foster a sense of inclusion and belongingness in the organization. Now, coming to LGBT community, right? We held pride marches across all our plants this year, to raise awareness, build a culture of acceptance and inclusions. Like shared earlier, right, the shop floor is a male bastion, and that is fast changing in our organization. We've put management programs to help women leaders in the organization grow and lead. We currently have one complete mold in LM that is handled by women. Many a times we have this bias, like what Elena said. Men have the bias that, oh, maybe women are not strong enough to handle. But then women have proved that they're capable, and they're able to produce things with same quality or better quality as assembly lines that are completely managed by men. Lastly, touching on the employees with disabilities, we have employees with disabilities and veterans as well as a part of our family. We ensured that they feel welcomed, integrated, and have access to opportunities. We have taken their successes and we have created stories. We call them the game changers, and we put them on our website so that the world outside can also learn from what we're doing in our own little microcosm.
Thank you, Chandra. So beautifully put. We don't have too much of time, so I'm going to ask one question which the three of you can answer. What would be your advice for organizations who are early on or starting on their ESG or their DEI journey?
So, is that for me? Shall I start then?
It's for all three of you.
Okay.
You can go first, Elena.
I think that one of the major things that I would say, and I think we've said this already, is to listen to your stakeholders, right? I think it's for me, it's the most important thing. Understanding who are your stakeholders and understanding what are the needs of your stakeholders. Different organizations with presence in different countries have different ways of delivering D&I strategies and action plans and initiatives. So my first thing would be first to listen to your stakeholders. The second thing is, what is the role that the organization wants to play? To give you an example, because we work with client governments, right? We have a dual role. The one is the implementer. So when we implement regulations or specific requirements for our client governments, and the other one is the initiator or influencer. So it's a role that you can take. You can just stick to just being whatever you are requested and just do this, or you want to enhance your role and have being an influencer. So where you go and influence the other client governments in other regions, in other locations, and say, listen, this is what the rest of the world is doing, and why don't you also do something similar like that? So second thing, what is the role of the organization? And third thing for me would be, how do you align with the best practices and what is the world is doing? So looking to tie up with, for example, there's the United Nations Unstereotype Alliance, just because we talked about the advertisements and learn from these organizations, tie up with these organizations and implement the best practices that they have to offer. So these are the three top things I would say as an advice from my end.
I want to add here.
Please, Gilberto.
I want to add here 2 or 3 points. First, we should be intentional. We need to be intentional to solve the D&I issue, to solve the social inequality. As a company, we need to be very intentional. It's not only about a LinkedIn beautiful phrase. It's about putting money on the table, and about investing people, and about training people as well. Second, D&I is different. D&I in Brazil is something, D&I in India is another thing. So we need to respect those, singularities for each country. And the last one, D&I, guys, is part of the business. D&I is not part of HR. D&I is not part of the diversity and inclusion team, or no, D&I is part of the business. Company that they don't have D&I as part of their agenda, they will have a problem in 10 years from now. Because, McKinsey and the other, consultant, they have already proved that D&I companies, they were able to have more profitability at the future, in the long-term run. So those three combinations will help us to keep driving this agenda, be intentional, putting D&I as part of the business strategy as well, and also respecting, each country's singularity.
Absolutely, so beautifully said, Gilberto, and that's one of the challenges that many organizations face, where DEI is seen as part of the the HR function, or a talent acquisition function, and sometimes it's very difficult because it's very important that the business recognizes the importance of DEI, and having it as part of your business agenda, where DEI is actually reporting in directly to the business stakeholders becomes very, very important. That's beautifully said. Chandra, over to you.
I have just one more point to add. Many organizations have a global DEI charter. So I would say, take the global, but then localize it.
True.
Because what is important for that culture, what is important for that community, you have to go out and understand what is important for them, what are their wants, what are their needs, and how can I plug their wants and needs into my DEI goals. So many organizations don't look at that. They only look at the mother, the umbrella goals, but then, we'll have to connect in with the local communities and bring in the local flavor. So I think I would add that to our list.
Absolutely. And I'm sure all of us have had that experience, right? I mean, even with ThoughtWorks, we have offices in 15 plus regions, and that's the struggle, right? You take global action, and how do you localize it? What are the different areas from a local regional perspective that you will need to invest in? And I think that's beautifully put. Thank you so much. And there are so many golden words and advices that we can take away from today's session from all of you. So thank you so much. I think post-pandemic, we continue to see issues and inequalities that remain overlooked, be it eco, gender, racial inequities, or the impact of climate change on the marginalized. While the pandemic has highlighted the need for organizations to not only revisit their internal DEI efforts, but also to look externally on the influence they can have on the world at large. So a holistic approach to DEI and ESG is what's needed today. And I think there are many organizations who are doing it really well. And it's important as part of conferences like DIFEST that we share our learnings, our best practices, and our mistakes too, as part of this journey. Thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation, and I look forward to connecting with you all. And Gilberto, on the framework, I'm going to come back to you on that.
Good.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.